I, whom you call a young military junta leader, who
Born with a sense of discipline and a fire for justice, Ibrahim Traoré did not just stumble into military life. He chose it with purpose. After graduating in geology from the University of Ouagadougou, where he had already made a name for himself as a student activist with Marxist leanings, Traoré decided that change from within the system wasn't enough. If he wanted to protect his people and his country, he would need more than words. He needed a weapon, a uniform, and most importantly, command. In 2009, Traoré officially joined the Burkinabe army. It wasn't the typical move for a student leader, but to him, the revolution wasn't over, it was just beginning. While many of his former classmates went on to pursue academia or politics, he went straight into the heart of state power. From the first day of training, he stood out. Physically sharp, mentally disciplined, and ideologically aware, he impressed his instructors. He wasn't just absorbing tactics. He was thinking about how they could be used to reshape society from the ground up. After excelling in early training, Traoré was selected for advanced military education abroad. In Morocco, he trained intensively in artillery, air defense, and strategic warfare. There, he didn't just sharpen his technical skills. He broadened his geopolitical awareness. He saw how alliances worked, how intelligence operated, and how international military training often came with subtle attempts at influence. Traoré noticed all of it and remembered. By the early 2010s, he was back in Burkina Faso, but no longer a cadet. Now, he was a young officer tasked with real missions. He was deployed to Mali as part of the United Nations peacekeeping forces. MINUSMA, the assignment was dangerous. Northern Mali was a cauldron of violence. Extremist groups, ethnic militias, foreign mercenaries, and ordinary civilians caught in the crossfire. For Traoré, this wasn't just about holding a gun. It was a front-row seat to how conflict unfolds when governments fail, when resources are plundered, and when the people are left behind. He saw villages burned. He saw children orphaned. He saw Western forces arrive in the name of peace but often leave, with silence or strategic interests in mind. He saw fellow African soldiers risking their lives without the equipment or support they needed. And through it all, Traoré's belief grew stronger. No foreign power was ever going to save Burkina Faso. The people would have to do it themselves. And the army had to lead. When he returned to Burkina Faso, his rank rose, and with it his responsibility. Traoré was now leading artillery units in northern provinces, where extremist violence had crept into everyday life. In places where the government barely existed, it was officers like him who restored some sense of order. He worked closely with villagers, listened to local elders, and began forming networks of trust. He wasn't just commanding soldiers. He was quietly building loyalty. To his men, he wasn't just a superior. He was someone who fought beside them, ate with them, and understood their fears. Still, the situation worsened. By 2022, jihadist attacks were spreading fast, and the capital's promises to secure the country were proving empty. President Damiba, a fellow officer who had taken power through a coup, had failed to deliver results. Morale across the army was dropping. Frustration was boiling. And in mess halls, camps, and quiet briefing, young officers like Ibrahim Traoré began to ask the question aloud: if leadership can't protect the country, who will? Traoré wasn't the only one asking, but he was one of the few brave enough to act. In late September 2022, under the cloak of growing dissatisfaction, he moved, with support from junior officers and strategic control over key military installations. Traoré launched a coup against Damiba. It wasn't bloodless, but it was fast. The public, exhausted by insecurity, greeted the news with celebration. A new face had taken charge, young, disciplined, and most importantly, from the battlefield. Wearing military fatigues, standing behind a microphone and surrounded by loyal soldiers, Traoré addressed the nation. His tone was calm but firm. He said the country was in danger, that the leadership had failed, that the people deserved a government that actually protected them, and that from that day forward, he would take responsibility not just as a soldier, but as a servant of the people. With power in his hands, he immediately set to work rebuilding the military's capacity. He increased recruitment, created rapid response units, and armed thousands of local volunteers under the new civilian defense force. He encouraged military-civilian cooperation and began pushing a new doctrine of self-reliance, Pan-African cooperation, and anti-imperialism. But the war wasn't just on the ground, it was political. Traoré pushed back against foreign military presence in Burkina Faso, especially the long-standing